Alright, one last one for a while. This is the official Andy book to the Marvel Universe, Master Edition 15, Iron Man, definitive costume reference and super statistics. Same hard song and dance with these. If it's you went to murder, same old song, same old song, same old song and dance. Aerosmith, Aero Cobbler. Our first profile in this issue is the Paul Rudd version of Ant-Man, one of the thinnest characters around. Katie needs her Zombrex every day. The brothers dim, well, one of them. They both look the same. You don't need two profiles. Hard Spider-Girl enemies that were naffed up by overcomplicated backstory, and then reintroduced as two brothers with zero backstory. It's a shame because it is a decent design. They also have a more annoying rhyming shtick than DC's Gargoyle. Bushwhacker Bob, one of my go-to fodder bad guys at Marvel. Want a character with simple powers that is a scumbag who doesn't need all that much explanation? Bushwhacker Bob's your man. He can transform his arms and hands into guns, and that is it. Here's a look at his profile. It lists the wrong issue as his first appearance. He was also in this week's issue of Venom. I just happened to spot him on the cover by chance. You don't often have me actually knowing something about current comics, do you? Next up is Charles 27 from the original Galactical Guardians. I remember liking the 90s series, and I'm sure they did stuff with Charles 27, but I can't think of anything. Those characters actually kind of blew before the 90s title. Don't worry, it does list Avengers Honorary under former group membership. Iris West now. We have gotten her first profile in this series, her original yellow costume. So far we have consistently gotten the versions of profiles reflecting my preferred take. I should start doing issues later in the series to mix it up a little. Maybe get the Sabreclaw I don't like before the Sabreclaw I do like. Something they changed between her two profiles is when she is supposed to have joined the Avengers. This one is correct. It was Avengers 336. Or if you want, when she showed up at the end of 335. But I will accept 336. The next one, the next version of her profile, says that it is Avengers 343. Even though she spends her whole story with the team before that. Me and my irritating insistence of Avengers membership details. Black Racer from the New Gods. Frequent adversary of Kazar. There's his other side. Black Racer. Frankenstein. I won't argue the semantics of the name. I actually agree with what this profile has done. But here is the creature, and for those boring pedantic people, it does say Frankenstein's monster on the back. Someone snuck one of Christopher Clairvoyant's turds into my Andy book. Guardman, former Iron Man character, and then a mass-produced armour used by the government. The profile covers the two characters who wore the armour, rather than the armour history. Ape-Man. Sometimes Adolf Hitler's brain in a new body. Other times, just the horrible man that is a bit like Adolf Hitler. And it is as blasé to just say Adolf Hitler under real name. Iron Man now, the star of the show. This is another one who gets a second profile later on in the series. And like Iris West, our first one is the better. This is his neoclassic armour. I used to hate this armour. Never liked it. but it started growing on us a few years ago, and now I am not against it. I do think the boots need to be quite big, and they are reasonably large here. His second profile that comes later in the series has him in an armour that he only wore for about 5 issues. It's not a good update. Batman with a ponytail. Some think of him as a Spider-Man villain, but to me, my mind has always gone straight to Moon Man. He didn't actually encounter Moon Man until Acts of Vegans, though. He was introduced in Quasar, or something like that. Bloodstump. I think it was Bloodstump in Rampaging Hulk. Fucking nailed it. And there's some Todd McFarlane art from Amazing Spider-Man. Gok 1, ancient Thor villain, created by Stanley Lee and Jack Quimby. Big fan of this one. I think it was forever a shame that Simon Waltonson didn't do an epic Gok 1 tale in his Thor run. The lack of Gok 1 in that, I would consider it part of the reason Gok 1 never got much use overall. His profile, like Fembot's yesterday, also notes an important non-canon story. In this case, Marvel Funfair issue 51, which has a Silver Surfman story by Steve Engeltine. Yes, it features Willow. Zatanna from the Justice League of America. I'll explain Moonglow. I didn't in the unboxing. I just said I didn't like it and expected you all to understand. Zatanna gave birth to a son towards the end of the Justice League Maxi series. And then in the graphic novel, the team didn't want to take her along on a mission because she had just given birth and should spend time with her baby. Zatanna then adopts the guise of, using illusions, Zatanna pretends to be Moonglow to go on a mission with the Justice League. When they found out, they should have had her go back to being regular Zatanna. Doesn't make much sense for her to keep up the Moonglow identity. Here is her datasheet with her details and bibliography. Annoyingly, because of the Moonglow name, it also incorporates all the information about the original Moonglow, who Zatanna is pretending to be. Was pretending to be. Orgasmo, Steve Gerbils' confused Superman type character. Can't say much more about it, not read it. Seems quite imperceptible though. Princess Pythagoras, from both the Circus of Crime and the Serpent Leagues and Societies. Rouge. Colour me feminist, but I reckon Rouge was a big enough and a popular enough character that she could have been a cover feature in her own right. She could be the main character on a cover to an issue of this series. She-Hulks, Storm, Sybil Savile, and then Rouge. That makes sense. She is one of the most obvious next candidates for the position. She might be the only one that I can think of who obviously could and should have been a cover girl on this series. Maybe Electro from Daredevil. She would be the 5th choice, I reckon. Invisible Wife or Wasps or Charlotte Witch. They are all great characters, but they weren't going to be on a cover of this series in the early 90s. There were only 3 women elevated to that position, and if you focus on them, you can work out why they were features, and Scarlett Johansson and Elliot Pride were not. Back of Rouge, Mr. Sandman, give me a dream. It's Sandman. This was during his hero period. And his time with the Avengers is mentioned on his reverse, but they do what Marvel have always tried to do: downplay it or decrease its importance in Sandman's history, when it is objectively what should be among the most important things in his history. Don't get your hopes up, it's not Emma Frosty's, it's Saturnalia from Captain Britain Comics. This is the opportune time for me to do a bit of a moan. This is a character from Captain Britain Comics. She had appeared in Excalibur though. We get profiles for Captain Britain and Morgan, both from Captain Britain Comics and appearing in Excalibur. Fetish Fuel, also originally from Captain Britain Comics, but appearing in Uncanny X-Cellent-Men. We get profiles for Marvel UK characters, but only if they appeared in American comics like this. Marvel UK was kicking off with a lot of titles halfway into this series, and we don't see any character from those books in these Andy books. And we don't see any past characters from Marvel UK publications, ones that were exclusive to Marvel UK publications. The main obvious one is the original Deathly Head, who had appeared in 3 American comics. He isn't profiled. Then you've got Deathly Head 2. You've got Motor Power and Killmouth. Those 3 each appeared in an American comic, but they are not profiled. Jack Staff would seem to be the exception. He gets profiled in his David Allen's costume from Knights of Penzance. But that is the only acknowledgement made to Marvel UK in this Andy book series. The character, he's really only been profiled because he debuted in American comics. Notable stuff from Captain Britain remains unprofiled. The furry robot, Mad Jim Jaspers. Even his brother, which is from American comics. And then a character like Deathly Head 2 was quite popular. There's honestly no good reason that he isn't in an issue towards the end of this series. There has just consistently been a prejudice, sadly cemented by Marky Mark J and Peter Sanford and Son, that the UK comics are not legitimate. Saturnalia's first appearance is listed here, but it lists an American reprint from the 90s as her first appearance, rather than the Captain Britain issue from the 80s. It treats and acts as if her first American appearance is what counts, and not her actual first appearance in a comic produced by Marvel UK. Marky Mark J preached about fictional universes all being shared, and a grand omniverse where Batman and Superman could exist alongside Spider-Man. But then, he doesn't really consider comics by a separate wing of the same company to really count as important to continuity. And if I needed more reason to get angry, here comes the Space Pantsman to retcon shit away. The 2000s Andy books, the relaunched Andy books, to their credit, they do finally incorporate Marvel UK stuff and treat it as equally valid as the mainstream American comics. All these characters long since absent from Andy books like Slaymaster or the Furry are covered as if they had been in an issue of Avengers or issues of Spider-Man. Tyaz, I would have predicted he was someone who wouldn't get a profile in this series. I don't think he had appeared in quite a while. Maybe he was in some Tom Falcon ones I forgot about, probably between 402 and 430. And our last character entry is for another rather major character, certainly at the time of print, Alan Watson. What is people's favourite Alan Watson design? I used to say this one, but I'm sort of, the last year or so, I've started not liking this much. There is his profile for you to look at. And then we have a team entry for the Avengers. This is the first lineup. I will air my grievances with these profiles in another one when I get one that is more apparently showcasing what I don't like about them. But for now, look at the top left. There is Wonder Man, because Wonder Man joined the team in Avengers issue 9. We have an action shot of Ghost Driver. I don't like these either. But they stopped doing these because people wrote in saying that they didn't like them. Across this Andy book though, we have gotten some characters to put onto teams that we are building with these. So out comes my stack of profiles from other issues of this series. Ant-Man, Iris West and Iron Man are good shouts for our Avengers team, which means it is time for me to officially dismiss Mockingbird for Iron Man. And Iris West is a serious consideration. Like the Sydney Sweeney Spider-Girl, this is a character who put in some big time as an Avenger, and she doesn't really get the reputation she deserves for it. I will withhold her for now. Maybe some of you can convince me to definitely include her, but our lineup is Captain America, Doc Smurf, sorry I know I just did this yesterday, but Falcon Man, and there is Iron Man, The Flash, one of my favourite Marvel characters, She-Hulk, Sydney Sweeney, and then Thor. I like our squad. It feels both classic, but a mix of characters that we've not really seen all together. And I do think Iris West would go quite well with them. For the time being, she can go with our Unhumans, Blue Balls, Gorgonzola, Cognac, and Tripods. Or she can pitch in with Fantastic Four, since all we have is Mr. Fantasticals and She-Hulks. No wait, hold on. We actually have a full team here. Mr. Fantasticals, there's Iris West, and She-Hulks, and Paul Rudd Ant-Man. Was this by the time that you joined Fantastic Force? No. Sandman is another Avenger, but he also fleshes out some villain teams too. Namely, we have Wingless Man and Sandman, so all we need is Trapper to get some canon Frightening Force lineups complete. There's also the Insidious Six. We have 4 of the original members: Dan Slott, Elektra, Birdman, and then Sandman. Zatanna is another one for our Justice League. We've got Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, and Batman, who is dead. Princess Pythagoras is another one for our Serpent League. I won't go through them again. It is just one new character for them. Rouge is straight in with our Excellent Men. And now this truly does feel like a workable Excellent Men team. You can see this being a team in a story. Storm is leader. There's Doc Smurf, Cannonballs, Fork, Multiplication Man, Smurf, Fetish Fuel, and Rouge. Charles 27 can go with Michael Rooker, and we've got the Starter Summit there. Alan Watson opens the doors to an Affinity Guard team, and we already have one character I would personally choose to put on that team. Shade the Changing Man. For more explanation, I discussed that in my review of issue 2 of Alan Watson and the Affinity Guards. Sound the horns. It is time to keep you updated on Fairyland Attacks, the sequel to SeaWorld Attacks, where shit happens and I don't explain things clearly to you. Iron Man is on our Avengers, so that is a big one. Mockingbird is no longer part of the team. Zatanna is on the Justice League. and there were two things I needed to tackle. The idea is that they will be fighting the Serpent League, which now has another member in Princess Pythagoras. They mended fences, let's say. The problem with this matchup is that the Justice League, while fewer in number, still overpower the Serpent League quite dramatically. So I have two handicaps in place to bring the Justice League a bit down in power level. We will come to the other one when we get his profile, but Zatanna is what we're talking about now. Her magic, I am saying, her magic would be unreliable because the rest of the story is in part affecting mystical things. Maybe it's where Chthon comes in as well. Magic itself isn't being reliable because the barriers between mystical dimensions are being assaulted and chipped away at by our villain's machinations. So Zatanna, she isn't at full fighting force to face the Serpent League of America. I am a lot more proud of how I have sensibly neutered Superman, so I'm looking forward to getting his profile. I think you all knew this was coming the minute I said Seth would be leading a massive army of his own soldiers and of other enemies of Fairylands. Gok-Wan is 100% there. First fucking character I thought of. He's a tank. He's obscenely powerful. All he really wants to do is destroy Fairyland. Makes perfect sense. Seth's army is so successful this time around because they have things like this fighting with them. Maybe it would finally be my chance to do the Gok-Wan versus Avengers story that I have always wanted. The team isn't great for that, actually. What the fuck is Falcon Man ganning to do against the hatred of a billion beans? Beans. Sounds like baked beans. A billion baked beans. Tyaz, this is a good one to come back to Summit. I suggested the idea that Idris Elba at Rainbow Road would be the last line of defence to keep Set from crossing over to Earth. I then noted that would be daft because he couldn't hope to do anything against Set himself. So I have decided Idris Elba is the last line of defence, but now he is also joined at Rainbow Road with a battalion of warriors that are primed and ready to fight for Earth's survival if it comes to it. There's a war going on in Fairyland. Thor and Hercules Man, and many of the main players are involved in that. Idris Elba's team, if you want to call it that, is where I can, to be very blunt about it, put the characters who I don't really care about. It also allows for some other inclusions too. Characters that are obviously against Set returning to Earth, but who are not involved enough to be fighting in the battle zone. Alan Watson is an example of someone who could be on Idris Elba's contingency army. It's where a lot of the other gods that aren't Fairylandian or Olympic gods or new gods can fit in. Isaiah is another one who can be there, for example. Firestorm too, although I kind of want him in the battlefield with Thor and Hercules Man, the characters that he has relationships with. When our character roster gets far more fleshed out, I will do a rundown of who is where, who is with Thor, who was on Seth's army, etc. These last few issues I've looked at haven't been tremendously revelatory for new stuff in SeaWorld Attacks, but there is some degree of waiting around for, and wishing for, certain characters that do provide big parts of the plot. We don't even have Seth yet, or the SARS. Issue 15 here was another instance of, I think it having, a fairly strong list of characters' profiles. A couple of duds, but we get massively important characters like Iron Man, Alan Watson, and Rouge. And then we get to scrape some mildly notable villains as well. And some great team fillers like Iris West and Sandman. I'll give issue 15. You won't see this coming. I'll give it a 7 thumbs up.